Course 5, Neuromotor Function and Social Cognition, Week 3, Addressing Neuromotor Function in the Classroom. Week 3 learning objectives are to understand strategies for helping students to develop skills or bypass weaknesses in neuromotor function, and to apply knowledge and vocabulary related to neuromotor function to identify class-wide strategies that use strengths and affinities to leverage challenges. In Week 2, we launched a conversation to generate ideas for supporting neuromotor diversity in the classroom. As you may recall, in our Collaborate session, we talked about ways to establish a classroom environment that embraces difference and celebrates what is special about each student. We talked about cultivating this kind of environment in part to protect students with neuromotor challenge from social isolation or social ridicule, since neuromotor function is so uniquely visible and potentially humiliating to those who struggle. So this week, we will work together to build up a collective knowledge base of the classroom-based strategies and techniques that can support neuromotor function and make room for neuromotor diversity. On this slide, there's a list of a few ways to begin looking for these kinds of alternatives. So first we have leveraging technology. In terms of leveraging technology, of course we've talked about ways technology can be used to bypass graphomotor weakness. However, the use of technology is not limited to that. For example, another way to leverage technology may be to allow students to compare computer models instead of using concrete manipulatives if that student has fine motor weakness. In terms of designing group tasks can allow for students to take on different roles, so students with neuromotor challenges can be spared having to complete tasks that are particularly strenuous or frustrating to them. For example, consider a group activity for middle school in which students are asked to design, build, and test a model suspension bridge to understand principles of engineering and physics. Students with fine motor weakness may really struggle with the construction aspects of this task, but may well excel in presenting the model to peers and answering questions about the design. This type of activity, designed for groups, allows teachers the opportunity to make sure all students in the class are able to engage with the content and have meaningful learning while remaining flexible enough to make room for different ways of participating. Another place to look for alternatives for students with neuromotor challenge is the design of in-class activities and expectations. Common routines such as lining up to leave the classroom, putting chairs up on desks at the end of the day, or using concrete manipulatives in math may pose grave challenges for students with neuromotor weakness. However, quite often a very small modification to the routine or expectation around the routine can offer powerful alternatives for struggling students. For example, students who have difficulty snapping counting cubes together due to fine motor weakness could instead count a partner's cubes to check for accuracy. The math goal is maintained, but the fine motor aspect of the task is thereby removed for that student. Instead of illustrating a story in writing or creating a line graph to represent data, students could select images from magazines, the internet, or books to include with their work. Once again, the aspect of having a picture to represent thinking is the same, but the task of drawing that picture is removed for the student. Finally, assessments themselves can be modified to allow students with neuromotor challenge to better demonstrate what they think and what they know. Oral responses, keyboard writing, or a collection and explanation of relevant artifacts are potential ways to assess student learning while bypassing student weakness. And when you go to the Moodle page this week, you'll find a discussion forum called Alternatives for Students Who Have Neuromotor Challenges under the Course Assignments and Resource tab on the Moodle page. If you have more ideas for specific ways and specific ideas to provide alternatives for students with neuromotor challenges, I ask that you add your ideas to that discussion forum with the idea that collectively among all participants in this course, we could actually generate a pretty great resource for us to draw upon of ideas for supporting students with neuromotor weakness in the classroom. So when you finished with these slides, it's not an assignment that you're required to do, but if you have additional ideas of your own or experiences that you think would be helpful for others to hear, please go to that discussion forum under the Resources tab and add your ideas so we'll all get a chance to think about it and share. So in addition for looking for ways to bypass neuromotor weakness, it's important to think about looking for ways to offer opportunities for students to develop and demonstrate strength in neuromotor function. As we discussed in our Collaborate session last week, for some students with weaknesses in other constructs in heavy demand at school, such as memory or language, neuromotor activities may offer relatively rare opportunities to demonstrate strength. For students with neuromotor weakness, it's important to balance efforts to bypass those weaknesses with opportunities to work on and develop new strength. Here are some ideas. One way is to incorporate art into the classroom to help students develop or show off neuromotor strength, particularly in fine motor function. Using clay for making models, painting, creating designs to build, or using small manipulatives to create categories or solve problems in math would be examples of incorporating this. Incorporating movement in the classroom can look like skits, playing ball, or even going outside to look for shapes or angles in mathematics or other features of the environment that connect directly to the content presented in class. This will give students a chance with gross motor strength to show that off, or students who are working to build gross motor strength will have opportunity to work on that during class time. Making room for students to generate and follow through on their own ideas for research, writing, and projects supports persistence in the classroom and also allows students to feature their strengths in the work they choose to present. For example, a student with a gross motor strength may know a lot about basketball or dance, and writing on these topics may be much richer and more motivating as compared to topics assigned by a teacher or those selected for them. Finally, in our Collaborate session, we also talked about celebrating neuromotor diversity through the classroom climate itself. The ideas on this slide are a starting place for thinking about how to develop this kind of climate, although, of course, there are many ways, and this is not an exhaustive list. Of course, we want to cultivate this climate of acceptance and difference, possibly through sharing strengths and weaknesses on a regular basis and through routines. And we also want to celebrate risk and growth with the intention of making sure students in the classroom are aware that difference is a space that they can use to look for to learn more about their peers and to understand a little bit more about how the diversity in the classroom adds to the rich culture of the classroom. Once again, you'll find a discussion forum called Supporting Neuromotor Function Diversity under the Course Assignment Resource tab on our Moodle page. So please use this discussion forum to add more ideas and create that common resource for our class to use moving forward. Finally, you have a few assignments for this week. You have the Helping Hands Resource Guide, which gives ideas for strengthening fine motor function and graphomotor function in particular in the classroom. And then you have a choice of discussion forums for this week. You may complete both if you're interested, but you are not required to. One of the discussion forums is on cultivating a classroom environment that supports neuromotor diversity. And the other one is on graphomotor function in the classroom, and we'll ask you to think about the reading from last week, the Crouch and Jacobacci, in addition to all the readings we've done in weeks 1 through 3. And finally, you have Lesson Project Part 2 due by the end of this week, and we'll be talking about the lesson project, the learning activity assignment, this week in our Collaborate session, so you can find out a little bit more about what your peers are thinking about, and you'll have an opportunity to share about the student that you've chosen to target for your study for this course. I hope you have a nice couple days, and I will look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at our session from 6 to 7. Bye-bye.